And today's title of today's lesson is divide 3 and 4 digit dividends. So that means that the number that goes underneath the bar, the number that we're dividing into, is going to have 3 or 4 digits. 1 second. Before I start teaching, if you are trying to work ahead on your math papers, please go back. Remember what I said, that I'll just take your papers away and then you don't get any, you'll take it all home as homework. The reason why is because I need you to listen to everything I'm saying. Even if you think you already know how to do it, I want you to pay attention to the entire lesson. It wouldn't be right if you started working and then at the end you raise your hand and say, what do I do? Because your working time just started and because it's a possibility that you're not doing something correctly. So I want you to listen to the whole lesson. There's a reason why I get paid to be a teacher, because I want to teach you this lesson first before you start doing it on your own. Okay? So if you've got 3 and 4 digit dividends and that's something that's really good for you and you already know how to do it, then when you finish early, maybe I'll ask you to help somebody else, because that would be a good thing that you could do when you're finished. But for right now, I need you to make sure you're paying attention, taking all the notes. Today's lesson goes along with what we've been doing because we're just going to start dividing today. So the number underneath the bar will have 3 or 4 digits. So that means we're going to go to the hundreds, the thousands. There may even be a couple in there that go up to the 10,000s place, because they like to throw a couple in there like that sometimes. So the steps that we're going to take are the same thing as the steps that we took when we divided with 2-digit dividends. Nolan, please don't talk when I'm talking. Got to make sure everybody can hear. So earlier in this chapter, this is kind of a long chapter, so it was a long time ago, we worked on dividing with 2-digit dividends. So the number under the bar only had 2 digits, like into the tens place. And the steps were divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. And we're going to do the same thing today. It's the same exact steps. Nothing has changed. The only difference is you're going to have more numbers that you have to bring down. So instead of only doing bring down once, you're going to have to do bring down maybe 2 or 3 times. Aiden. Can you do what? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, go ahead. Hurry back. Okay, so let's look at the essential question. Just one more strategy that you can use to divide whole numbers. This is the main strategy that you would use to divide whole numbers. The other strategies that we've learned are kind of strategies that work with certain kinds of numbers, right? So like when we did the one with tens, multiples of 10, and you could divide those in your head, that only works if it's a multiple of 10. If it's not, then that strategy kind of doesn't work for us. Drawing the pictures is a good strategy, but you're not going to want to use it with every single division problem that you come across. Sometimes maybe you'll use it to check your work, and it definitely helped us understand a little bit deeper what we were doing. Same thing goes with the partial quotients and with the distributive property. Those might work sometimes, but it's probably not something that you want to do every single time. So let's look at your problem of the day, and we're going to try this one on your whiteboard. If you don't have a whiteboard, wait till I'm finished reading the entire question, and then you can get up and grab a whiteboard, okay? There are 16 houses between Padma and Juan. There are 5 houses between Padma and Benita. Give 2 possible answers for how many houses are between Juan and Benita. So you're going to have, I think, a good strategy for this one might be drawing a picture. This question is not a division question, right? Sometimes the problem of the day has really not much to do with what we are doing today, and it doesn't. This just kind of gets your brain working and ready to start thinking. So I would draw some sort of a map or a picture on my whiteboard and show how many houses are in between each person, because there can be 2, it says to give 2 possible answers. So that means once you find one answer, see if you can think of what you think the other answer would be. Okay, so use your whiteboard because you're going to have to show how you got your answer. We'll give you a minute. So we heard all of your suggestions. So I keep your stuff on your board, because if you got it right, when we're all finished, I want you to turn and show somebody who might not have gotten it right how you got your answer. So we have Padma here. This is Padma's house. Here's Juan's house. And there are 16 houses in between theirs. Okay, I'm not going to draw them all, but there's 16 houses in between. And then if there are 5 houses between Padma and Benita, so here's where your answer could get different. So let me redraw this because I need some space on the other side of that. So here's Padma's house, 16 houses, and then here's Juan's house. Now, if we say that Benita lives on this side of Padma, that would be 5 houses away, 5 houses in between. Then how many houses would be between Juan, which is way over here, and Benita, which is way over here? You have 5 here, 16 here, which is 21, but then don't forget about Padma's house because she's in the middle. So that's 22 houses. That would be one of your answers. Now, another answer would be if we had Padma right here, Juan right here, and we said there were 16 houses in between, and Padma and Benita live 5 houses. There's 5 houses in between of theirs. So instead of Benita living on the other side of Padma, what if Benita lived in here? Because it didn't really say which side. If it didn't say. It said that Padma and Juan live 16 houses apart, and it said that Padma and Benita live 5 houses apart, but Benita could have been living over here or over here. That changes it. So if she lives 5 houses apart here, then we have, it's a different thing because there's still only 16 total houses. There's just 5 to get there, and then there's 16 houses in between, right? So that would be your other answer because there's 16 houses in between. Sometimes, between, how many houses are between Juan and Benita would be, who had 11 on theirs?
Me.
Raise your hand if you had 11 as one of your answers. So if you had 11, that would be the other correct answer. Because Padma and Benita would be 5 houses in between. And if we minus that from 16, that would mean that there would be 11 houses in between those two. So 16 is the total. If there was 5 here, then that would leave 11 to be here. So there's your problem of the day. So good job. Let's get moving. I'm looking at the time. That one was a hard one, so I did give you a lot of time to spend on that one, but it's because there was 2 different answers, and it was kind of cool to see how people got their answers and what kind of pictures that you were drawing to get your answers. Okay, so let's look at your notebook. Chapter 3, Lesson 8. Lucky for you, this lesson is being divided into 2 parts because this lesson takes a while. The problems take a little bit of time. You know, it's long division. It's called long division for a reason because it takes a long time to solve. So my hope is that I teach it to you today, and then tomorrow you get to go over it again and do some more review questions, and then by the end of tomorrow you're going to be professionals at doing long division problems. So sometimes if we try to smush it all into one day and move forward, we get about half the people understand it and the other half are still a little bit foggy. So hopefully after today there's going to be some of you who already know how to do long division and you're pretty good at it, and it's not going to be a big problem for you. But the second day will allow you to have some more examples, and it will also allow the people who aren't quite there, it'll allow them to also get right there where they need to be. We did long division before, but we only had 2 digits that we were dividing into. This time it's 3 or 4 digit dividends. The number you're dividing into. This, I'll wait until your conversations are done because what I'm saying is important and I want you to hear it.
Is that in your notes?
Yep. That's what I was trying to tell you. So you'll notice, well, Amelia noticed and a couple of other people probably noticed, that this is exactly what we wrote before in your notes, but we're writing it again because it doesn't hurt to see it again and to make sure that you remember. So the steps are again the same. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Repeat. Then we're going to start over again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And we repeat as many times as we need to until we're out of numbers to bring down. Once we get to that last number, then we are done with the problem. So today you might have some remainders still, just like you did on the other long division lesson. So it's a possibility to still get some remainders, but the point is that you're making sure that you bring down all the numbers. Now, since we have more numbers in our divisor, or our dividend, since our dividend has longer numbers, sometimes people write a little bit sloppy, and when you write a little bit sloppy, and you might skip a number by accident that you're bringing down and stuff like that. So please try to take really extra caution when you're writing down the problems. Make sure that every number is clearly written there. Like if somebody writes a problem like this, I'm just going to give you an example. And then when you start dividing, you accidentally skip, that's a 9. You might accidentally skip it, and when you bring down, you only bring down this 3, and then you only have 2 numbers up here above instead of 3. Then you get the wrong answer. So it's pretty important that when you're writing it, try to take really extra special care. Some people write really big, some people write really small. Try to write on the line, fill up the space on the line, and use those lines to kind of help you keep everything straight and in order. So that was my first example I just wrote up there. So it was 393 divided by 3. So I'm going to remind you that this number here is called the dividend, and this number is called the divisor. So copy that into your notes. Copy that into your notes. And remember how I told you before when we did long division that you take the number that is the dividend always goes underneath the bar, and the number that is the divisor goes on the outside of the bar. So that's something that you're also going to need to remember. You don't want to mix those numbers up. So our first example, I have to clear this so I have enough space. First example is this problem I just wrote, 3 into 393. So remember we switched those two, put one on the outside, one on the inside. And just like before, I'm just going to follow those steps, one step at a time. Step number 1 is to divide. So I divide 3 into 3, and it fits once. So the 1 goes above the 3. Now I multiply. 1 times 3, and I get 3. Subtract is the next step, which is 0. And then bring down is step number 4. And now I repeat. So here was the point last time when some people said, I know I understood it up to this point and then I didn't know what else to do. All you're going to do is now you're going to restart. Julissa, I need you to move seats. You're not taking any notes and you're talking. So find another seat. Sit over there. Grab a piece of paper. If you don't have a notebook, you need a piece of paper. You can't sit and talk while we're taking notes. You have to have all this down. Some of these might be on your assignment. So some of the things that we're doing here you might find on your work today, and if you don't have them in your notes, you're going to have to redo them. Okay, so thank you for waiting while the phone rang. So some people got a little confused at this point and said, I don't know what to do next. All you do is repeat the steps again. So I'm going to divide again. 3 this time into 9. 3 fits into 9 3 times. And now, because now that I'm working in the tens place, my answer goes on top of the tens place. So look up at the screen. Everybody, Bryson, Hamza, look up at the screen. Look up at the screen. Because I brought down the 9 from the tens place is where my answer is going to go. So this is kind of what I was talking about as far as keeping the numbers all straight on when you're dividing and where you're putting your answers. Be very careful where you're writing everything. So 3 times 3 is 9. Then we subtract and we get 0, and then we repeat by bringing down the next number. Then we repeat. This time 3 into 3. 3 into 3 goes once. 1 times 3 is 3, and my remainder is 0. So then my final answer is 131. Here's what I want you to look at. Look up at the screen. Every number here needs to have a number above it. So the 3 has a 1 above it. The 9 has a 3 above it. The 3 has a 1 above it. If for some reason it doesn't fit, like say the first number here, instead of being 393, what if it was 193? then you would put a 0 up here above the 1. See? Like if this were the question. If I were trying to divide, you don't have to write this part, I just want you to watch. If I were dividing 3 into 1 and it didn't fit, I would put a 0 up here, and then I would divide 3 into 19, see, which would go 6 times, and that would equal 18. Then I subtract, and I bring down the 3. 3 goes into 13 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12, and then I get a remainder of 1. Notice that I still have 1 digit above every number. The reason why that's important is because sometimes when we're dividing, you're going to bring down a number and it's not enough. Once you bring down, sometimes when you bring down, it's not enough. And so when you do that, you're going to have to put a 0 in the quotient. And you're going to have a couple questions like that today in your assignment. So I wanted to do an example like that and show you. It's really important that you double check this, because if I only had 2 digits up there, but my number here is a 3-digit number, then I might have missed something. And that's how you make little tiny mistakes when you're doing long division. So here's another example where that's the case. So watch what I mean. 9 divided into 965. Write this in your notes. 9 into 965. So I'm going to show you what I mean by how when it's not enough sometimes. And I know that this skill is a 4th grade skill too, so you did do some long division in 4th grade. This is kind of a review of that. So hopefully once I'm telling you this, you're remembering some of it. So if I'm dividing first, which is step number 1, 9 goes into 9 once. Step number 2 is multiply. 1 times 9 is 9. Subtract. Bring down. Now here's what I mean. 9 into 6. Does 9 fit into 6? No. So Nolan, what do you think I would do?
You'd put a 0 up there because there would be a 0 in the answer. I don't
So-
know if it'd go evenly, exactly. I don't think it would.
So
but
you-
still.
Well, you put a 0 there. That's the main thing that you need to think about. So this is what I'm trying to say as far as when I told you at the beginning, make sure you're writing really neatly, because I can see that I need a number above the 9, and I would then need a number above the 6. Some people accidentally skip putting that 0 up there, and then they just go on with a problem, and then they have 1 less digit in their answer than they should. And a 0 in the middle of an answer makes a difference. So since I brought down the 6, let me redo that. 9 into 9, 6. You know that happens sometimes. Just redo it. So once I bring down the 6, when the 6 is not enough, I'm going to put a 0 above it. And because the 6 was in the tens place, I make sure that my 0 is also in the tens place. And now I'm going to bring down again. I cannot put 9 into 6. That's why I put a 0 on the top. See where I put the 0 up there? Look at the screen. Put the 0 on the top. And then, since it wasn't enough, I just do bring down and I start over again. The other thing you could do, watch, if you want, okay, let me do this again. You could go like this and then bring down. Why don't you do that? If it confuses you, do that.
Or can't you just bring down the 5
Um,
instead of having...
That's what I just did.
Okay.
And then people looked confused. That's why I redid it like this, because I wanted to make sure I wasn't trying to confuse you. So 9 goes into 65. How many times? Angelina, how many times?
7.
7, and that equals 63. So 7 times 9 is 63. Then I subtract, and I get a 2. So let me show you how I just wrote it first, and then I erased it. Nolan was asking. 9 into 9 goes once. I'm redoing this problem in case you wondered. Bring down the 6. It wasn't enough. So then I just went like this and brought down the 5. Because the 6 wasn't enough, so I just brought down the 5. 9 into 65 goes 7 times, and that equals 63 with a remainder of 2. So it's the same thing. All I did was I skipped this part right here where I minus the 0. And it's completely up to you. If you like to do it where you minus the 0 and then you go back to the 6 again, it just adds like one extra little piece and makes it just look a little bit longer. But it's up to you. Don't get confused. So if that's the way that you can do it without being confused, then do it that way. Are we supposed to do what? You could probably do a little bit of what we did yesterday. Some of the numbers are going to be really big though, so you don't want to. I want you to practice just like yesterday when I asked you to practice the distributive property or the partial quotients. Today I want you to practice the standard algorithm. On the test, you could choose whichever way you want because you have all those tools now. Okay, I want you to try this one without my help. Oops. Let's make that bigger. Try that one without my help. Here are the steps. Step number 1 is to divide 4 into 6. Fits once. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract and I get 2. Bring down the 3. 4 into 23 would fit 5 times. 5 times 4 is 20. Subtract and I get 3. Bring down the 7. 4 into 37 goes 9 times. 9 times 4 is 36. And I get 1. I did hear someone say while you guys were working, wow, what a big remainder. So hold on, because this is what I want to tell you. They did not get the same answer that we just got. Here's what I want you to check. If your remainder is bigger, listen carefully because this is a good tip. You guys are maybe still too close to each other. Well, you're not fine if you're talking when I'm giving math directions though. So I'm sure that you feel like you're okay, but if you're talking when I'm talking, it's not okay, so you might have to move again. So if this number, the remainder, is bigger than that number, which is the divisor, that means that you did something wrong, because that means that that number could have fit in one more time. Like for instance, if you said that 4 goes into 37 8 times, and then you got 32 as your answer, as your number, and then you subtracted it and you got 5, then 5 is bigger than 4. And that kind of gives you a clue that your remainder should never, never, never be bigger than the number that you're dividing by. Because if it's ever bigger than that, it's because it could have gone in again and something went wrong. So give me a thumbs up if you got 159 remainder 1. Good. Good. Okay, try this one. 120 divided by 4. Now remember, listen, when you write them, it should go like this. A 4 on the outside, 5,120 underneath. So try that one by yourself and then we'll see what you got. Watch. 4 fits into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract and we get a 1. Bring down and we get 11. So 4 goes into 11 twice. 2 times 4 is 8. When I subtract, I get a 3. Bring down the 2. So now it's 4 into 32. 4 fits into 32.
You're doing it wrong.
What did I do wrong? I didn't do anything.
Yeah. You guys did it wrong.
Okay, I was going to say, I don't think I did anything wrong that time.
I punched it up. I think it's a 0.
Oh, is that because of messy writing? Remember what I said? No messy writing.
That writing is not messy.
No messy writing.
It wasn't messy.
3, 2, 1, 0. Let's watch the rest of the problem. 4 goes into 32 8 times. 8 times 4 is 32. Then we get a 0. And I'm done, right?
Oh, you got 128? Oh, you have to add the 0. Right.
So make sure that, I heard Malachi saying, make sure you bring down the 0. Right there. 4 can't fit into 0, so then we have a 0 in our answer. Now, listen. I'm glad you're getting it, but voices need to be off while I tell you this tip. Ready? That's why I told you that every number you need to make sure that every number has a number. Remember it did this last time. There we go. No. There we go. So every number has to have a number above it. So when I just had 128 there as my answer, and I didn't have that very final 0 on the end, it would be wrong because each digit did not have a digit above it. So sometimes you feel like 0 doesn't really matter if you have it there or not, but 128 is very different than 1,280, which is the actual answer to this problem. Okay, look over at your math assignment. In order for you to get all of your working time, we need to get there quietly to your math paper. Example number 1. If someone next to you is talking, do this. Hamza, I need you to move to a different seat, please. Sit next to Samir at the stool, at the rolling chair.
Please, no, not that. No.
He's gonna sit there. Example number 1. In a 4-hour period, 852 people rode an amusement park ride. If the same number of people rode the ride each hour, how many people rode the ride the first hour? So in a 4-hour period, you have 852 people riding the ride. So it's 852 divided by 4. So they did show how an estimate would help you check your work at the end. So if you make an estimate, it's my bracelet making some marks on there. So if you do an estimate at the beginning, then you should be able to, it should give you some kind of a close answer for the end. So I don't think I would use 900 divided by 4. I think I would use 800. I think I would use 800 divided by 4 just because the estimates should be really quick in your head. So I'm going to make that 800 divided by 4. And I'm going to get 200 as my guess. Now, since I lowered 852 and made it into 800, that means my estimate is going to be a little bit low, but it still should be close enough to be able to check your work. So step number 1 is to divide 4 into 8, which goes twice. 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract, you get 0. They've already brought the 5 down for you. 4 fits into 5 once. 1 times 4 is 4. Subtract 5 minus 4 and you get 1. I love how they already brought down all the numbers for you. So you bring down the 2. 4 goes into 12 3 times. 3 times 4 is 12. Then you subtract and you get 0. So this one has no remainder. 213 people. And my estimate was 200, which is pretty close to 213. Now, the good part about the estimate, listen, the good part about the estimate is that the estimate gives you some sort of a ballpark figure. So if my estimate was 200 and my answer was 2,000 something, like if I had an extra 0 on there, or maybe I forgot a 0 and I only had like 20 something as my answer, like 23 as my answer, that's definitely going to make a difference. So by looking at my estimate, it just gives you lets you know if that's a figure that's even close to the answer or not. So over here on the side where we're filling in, it would be 852 divided by 4. So that would be 213 people who rode in the first hour. And we already checked our answer with estimating, but if you wanted to, you could, like I said, where we wrote that in down there, you could always multiply to check your answer as well. If you want to do it on the side, yeah. Sometimes when they give you, hold on, sometimes the boxes get annoying. So if you'd rather just write the answers on the side, write it on the side. Sometimes with the boxes, you're not sure what they want you to write in there. Okay, example number 2. This number goes into the thousands. So we're dividing 6 into 7. That fits once. 1 times 6 is 6. Subtract 7 minus 6 and we get 1. Next step is bring down. So we bring down the 9. So now we have 6 into 19, which goes 3 times. 3 times 6 is 18. 9 minus 8 is 1. Bring down the 4, so that's 14. 6 into 14 goes twice. 2 times 6 is 12. Hopefully following with me. I see everybody writing. hold on one second. So 14 minus 12 would be 2. Bring down the 6. 6 into 26 would go 4 times. 4 times 6 is 24. And then you get 2 again as a remainder. So your answer is 1,324, remainder 2. Each of these times here, each of these little sections, all I'm doing is repeating my steps over and over and over again. So you have to remember, it's always just going to be divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. And then you go back up again and start over again. Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. Over here when we fill in some things, we have 1,324, remainder 2. It is, you're right. Except that 8 in there. So then if we were going to check our answer using multiplication, it would be 1,324 times 6, but then you'd have to add the remaining 2 on there. So if you're checking your answer and the answer had a remainder, you multiply the main answer and then you add the remainder at the end. So you have to remember that part. Otherwise you get a different number. So today for your assignment, I'll leave that up there while I'm telling you this part, is I want you to do the even numbered problems on today's assignment. So that would be numbers like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, okay? Numbers that when you count by 2, you would list the numbers when you count by 2. Even numbers only.